everyone to our third day of the next normal week. And to the panel is the digital ecosystem, Pharma's quarterback. It's pretty much interesting topic to discuss today. Really pleased to welcome two extraordinary speakers with me. So first of all, Francesca Wuttke, the Chief Digital Officer from Almirall. Hi, Francesca, how are you?
Hi, Dario. Thanks so much for having me.
And Timothy White from Teva, from Amsterdam, also in the office. Hi, Tim, how are you?
Good, Dario. Good to speak with you again.
Great. So let's deep dive into the conversation since we had a small delay. And the first question, which I think is maybe the most crucial one, is that let's set foundations and let's define digital from digital therapeutic side, and Francesca can speak about that, and digital from the commercial side, and Tim can maybe speak about this a little bit more. Or you can speak both about both topics, so depending how you like it. So let's start with you, Francesca.
Sure. So, you know, what we're endeavoring to do here at Almirall is really the end-to-end digital transformation of the company. So things like back office process automation, utilizing a lot of AI and advanced analytics to drive drug discovery, software-enabled clinical trial solutions, and of course the digital therapeutics that we're embarking on. And in that, for those of you who don't know, it's using software as a medical device, so delivering a therapeutic via software and a set of platforms and programs to do so. So for us, when I speak of digital health, we're really focused on embedding data analytics and advanced analytics across the organization, but also embedding digital health solutions to better interact with both our patients and providers.
Thank you, Francesca. Tim?
Yeah, so I think following up on Francesca, I guess when you do hear the word digital, it's a pretty broad term. And so I think a lot of those underlying trends that what Francesca mentioned, they're applying to the more product side and the more clinical side in terms of things like machine learning, you know, even some more advanced things like blockchain, but certainly just sort of the new way of working, the amount of computing power and ability to collect data that we now have in the world. The way I kind of see digital transformation is how that basically then affects the value chains of companies. And so that can affect, as said, anything from the product side, the clinical development. And on our side, on the commercial front, it's really about, you know, how do we actually leverage all of this new technology to create better and stronger relationships with our key stakeholders? And those can be digital relationships, they can be analog relationships or face-to-face augmented through what technology can offer, or they can be sort of a mix of all of these things. And that's the kind of omnichannel approach, if you will. But yeah, it's basically about leveraging all of this to create great relationships. And then, of course, like any corporation, to use that to a competitive advantage for us.
Thank you, Tim. Next question. I think that the pandemic definitely teach us a lot, and at the end of the day, changed a lot. But what are your greatest learnings in the last 18 months? And maybe an additional sub-question, what are the great opportunities out of these learnings? Let's start with you, Tim.
Yeah, so there's been an awful lot of learnings, I think. I mean, I think one is that it's much more complex than a very binary view. I think in the early days of the pandemic, it got a lot to where we just said, okay, let's go digital. And that meant, you know, putting a rep behind a screen like this and trying to detail to customers. And then as it sort of progressed and evolved, really becoming much more about that customer experience. And as people have choices, they have options in terms of how they want to spend their time, how they want to learn about new pharmaceutical products, how they want to dispense the medicine that they have as a pharmacist, whatever the needs are. You know, we need to basically be there to augment the relationship and to create that great customer experience. So I think that's the first one, just in terms of it's much more complex than sort of saying analog channels to digital channels. And I think the second one overall is that we actually are capable of maybe moving much faster than we thought we previously had been. And there you can look all the way, even forget digital, into how quickly we were able to develop and get vaccines to market as an industry, but certainly also providing through in terms of how we were able to stand up a number of different solutions around the world to keep medicines moving to patients, to keep communication flowing between industry and professionals, or to keep our employees engaged. And I think that has been a great learning. And I think where a lot of people thought certain things weren't possible, say 2-3 years ago, I think are now just commonplace in the norm today. So I'm really inspired with what comes after this whole pandemic.
Thanks a lot, Tim. Francesca?
I think resilience has been the biggest learning for all of us across the industry, but certainly across the world, within a variety of different industries. The reality that we've all lived through during this global pandemic has had us question about how we work and the ways we work and the way we live. And certainly that's had an impact on how we do our day-to-day. I completely agree with Tim in that we've learned that we can do things faster and well. Faster doesn't necessarily mean cutting corners, but it means, choosing and prioritizing which things to do and how to do them. We had to deploy a number of solutions and services really, really quickly to better interact with our key stakeholders and with each other as team members. And I think that familiarity with technology has caused everyone to become a little bit more or maybe less skeptical about technology and the value that it can bring to all of our organizations. I had a very senior person in the organization early on in the pandemic tell me, I logged into Teams on my own and I was sharing a screen and sharing my presentation. And it's a silly example, but I think it goes to show how far we've all come and how normal this is for all of us to interact and to speak with each other because we haven't been able to do so in person. So leveraging that massive acceleration that we've lived through, where technology has been an enabler, it allows us to do things that I think we never would have expected we would be so mainstream in all aspects of our business, and that's been really exciting, and I look forward to that continuing over time.
So in overall, how would you call the whole situation with coronavirus? Would you call that COVID was the accelerator or the catalyst for the overall digital transformation?
I would say it catalyzed some of the changes we've all been trying to do for quite some time, and because of that, it's accelerated some things. I think there are a few, because the pandemic has lasted as long as it has, we're sort of 18 months in, the skeptics in the beginning that said, oh well, this will pass and next month it'll be fine and we'll have access to business as usual. Again, I think there are a few of those people that are still around and thinking in that way. So it's caused us all to think about how we can better interact as a society, even when we're not able to do so face to face, and also really think about what our customers want to see. And our customers could be internal customers, they could be external, they could be physicians and patients, and really understand and put them at the center of how they would like to ingest information and interact with us.
Thank you very much. Tim, how would you say, is it accelerator or catalyst?
I think also a catalyst. There's a lot of nuance between those two words probably, but we were. I'm speaking very much for Teva and the work we were doing. We were already kind of well on our way in some ways to this journey, probably by the nature of our business being that we're a generics manufacturer and a little bit more B2B oriented. So we were a bit further along. But what it certainly did was it probably, as Francesca said, it sort of eliminated some level of skepticism about what was possible, what wasn't possible, kind of what we discussed earlier. And then, like I mentioned, I think it just infused a lot of speed and agility. And then I think we can also forget that this way of working, in terms of our own way of working and how we're dealing with, Dario, you and I were talking about not going to events and all of this anymore ourselves, somehow also, I think, put everybody in a mindset which then was able to embrace changes that we wanted to then employ onto our customer base as well. So, Yeah, again, I would say probably a catalyst. You know, a lot of these ingredients were there. It was just a matter of probably bringing them together and fueling them up a bit.
Thanks a lot. Next question. Greatest new digital capabilities or opportunities for pharma, which you see? Is this maybe AI based on the big data which we gathered? Is this maybe blockchain, machine learning, VR? We see a lot of things is currently going on with VR, with the initiatives coming from Facebook and so on. So what do you think are the greatest new opportunities, which based on the technology, of course, based on the learnings and the whole development which we have from the Corona crisis?
Maybe I'll be a bit controversial here, Dario, but I actually think what I'm going to say is consistency. So not any one single piece of tech or interesting, you know, flashy gadget, or certainly, you know, the most cutting edge thing that's being worked on in the Jet Propulsion Laboratory or something like this. It's really about staying consistent. And I say that because you know, we have access today because of the cloud, because of what is happening in Silicon Valley. By swiping a credit card, you can have the world's best marketing automation tools. You can have the world's best content management system. You can have no-code app development platforms. You can have all of these things actually quite simply. The hard thing is getting your business to stay consistent to leveraging that technology to create either great experiences or value creation through the clinical programs or whatever your digital strategy is. It's not going to be kind of one singular piece of flashy tech or something that will be out there. Those are all great opportunities, and they continue to support. But if we're not consistent to them, then it'll just be the next hype cycle that will raise up and then come back down.
Exactly. Francesca?
Yeah, I agree that it's not tech in whatever definition we want to give it. That's creating lasting change. It's the change management across the organizations and the way people are embedding and implementing the solutions and services that are necessary to stay relevant in this environment. You know, I think when I was an investor a few years ago, the word du jour was blockchain, and everyone was all about blockchain. You know, about 3 years ago. Then it was, you know, AI for a while. And I think it's less driven by whatever technology or platform or data analytics, you know, technique you're using. It's more about whether or not they're being used broadly, and I think to Tim's point, consistently across organizations. One of the biggest changes across digital health that I'm starting to see become more and more embedded is, you know, I mentioned it earlier, is digital therapeutics. So it's using approaches that are adapted for digital mechanisms to provide treatments to patients in an environment where we're not always able to get to multimodal care for patients, and the physicians have to focus on either COVID or the most urgent cases they're seeing, and a lot of patients across a number of different therapeutic areas are unfortunately falling by the wayside. So the ability to deliver a powerful, clinically based and with clinical evidence therapeutic to patients remotely, or at least a little bit more hands off from a physician's perspective, while still under their care, of course, I think is a lasting change. And we're seeing that reflected in M&A across pharma and in licensing deals for digital therapeutics, and even digital therapeutics functions being formed across the industry as well. As really another modality of medicine. You have initially the small molecules, then biologics, and cell and gene therapy, and I at least feel strongly that digital therapeutics is really that fourth wave.
What I think personally is a quite big barrier is that our expectations are in many cases either quite wrong or quite high, right? Because take an example, AI. I mean, a couple of years ago, like you, Francesca, said, we all had this naive belief that AI will just substitute us, everything will be done by AI, machine learning, and so on. And now I would say that today we have different expectations because we know better what AI can and what AI can't, right? So I think that maybe the expectations aligned with the technology should be also something which is definitely very important.
Yeah, and I think the inputs as well, because an AI is only going to learn from the data sets that you feed it with.
Exactly.
So it's very much a case of garbage in, garbage out, and if you don't want to go too big and then not have the right access to the right information, and then what you'll get out won't really be useful. But you also don't want to go too small. I've seen cases, here and elsewhere, where we start on something that's too small that you don't need AI for. You need an Excel spreadsheet and a couple of macros. So really understanding what it is you're trying to do, what data set you specifically need, and the quality of those data, and then how to further glean insights from them, whether it's AI, machine learning, or Excel, or a piece of paper.
Exactly. Okay, any final words, Tim?
No, I mean, nothing really to add. I mean, this is always a pleasure to talk about this topic. I think I was joking, when we had our prep, your title about, is digital the ecosystem, the quarterback for pharma, that I know we have a lot of Americans on this audience, but probably have a lot of non-Americans as well, in terms of being able to explain what a quarterback is. But I think maybe to go back to that original point, is it the thing that we're using to kind of distribute, whether that's value creation within the company or distribute and manage the customer relationship? I think it has the increasing ability to be in the future, and maybe it isn't now. But I think in the long run, what we really will want to make sure is that the technology paired up with the right human capabilities is what we're using to actually create value for patients and the overall healthcare systems overall. So maybe it's not quite the quarterback yet. It's the wide receiver or the running back, but it will become the quarterback probably as time progresses. Yep.
Exactly. Thank you, Francesca. Thank you, Tim. Really great conversation at the end. Sorry again for the small delay. And hopefully see you, of course, in May next year in beautiful Dubrovnik. Thank you very much, and take very good care. Bye.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yep, bye-bye.